Hi, and welcome to the show. I'm Holly Bott, and this is the show Reentry, where we're going to talk about life after prison. And before we get started, I want everybody to introduce themselves. If you can tell us your name and how long you served in prison and when you were released.
My name is Veronica Puentes. I served 2 years, and I was released in March of 2011.
And I'm Holly Bott, and I served 8 years, and I was released in December of 2018.
I am Never Hall. I was incarcerated in June of 2016 and was released in June of 2024.
Marshawn Winston. I was incarcerated for 8 years, and I was recently released in July of 2024.
Okay, thanks. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about necessities today, housing, money, and everything a person needs upon release, right? And so let's get started first by talking about, I think, the biggest issue, which is housing, right? And so can each of you tell us a little bit about what was your housing situation when you were first released? And even if you've only been out for a short time, what does it look like right now today? So.
Start.
Yeah.
Well, when I was released, I know that I chose to go to a halfway house. For certain reasons, I wasn't comfortable going home right away. I still had addictions from my stepfather that were going on there at the home, so I just didn't feel comfortable going there. But it was difficult once I actually tried and started to get out there and start looking for a place. Mm-hmm. It was a constant battle because it was denial after another. It was, like I said, paying $25 for each application and then to only get denied until there was this one woman in particular, I don't remember her name, but she told me, "Hun, because of your background, anywhere that asks you for a background check, they're going to deny you." And this was 3 months after my release that I was just struggling.
Right.
And I'm a child of God. I am a prayer warrior. I just kept praying, and I just remember getting a phone call, and it was either a family member or a friend who said that there was a man that didn't run background checks, that he, kind of was, I just want to know if you had your rent and deposit,
right.
And if if you had it, he was one to kind of just give you a chance and get in.
Right.
And so I called this man right away, and he was like, "You got the deposit?" And I was like, "Yes, I do. Meet me at the gas station." And that's how I started, but it was very, very difficult for me. I mean, there was a lot of tears, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. I was really tired of being judged by my past.
Yeah.
I know that it was difficult.
So what is your housing situation today?
Oh my goodness. I just purchased my home. Me and my husband purchased our first home ever last year.
Congratulations.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have definitely come a far way from 2011 to now. Having that apartment and building that stability was able to help me later on in the future when I ended up moving from one town of East Grand Forks to Crookston. Once again, I kind of ran into the background check, right?
Right.
But once again, I was blessed with getting, it was either an email or a phone call about a certain landlord who would maybe be willing to, hear my story and give me a chance, and he did. And he said, "You know what, I'm not even going to run your background. Just by seeing you and how you present yourself and being honest with me about your background, I'm going to give you a chance." And he rented to me for 5 years.
Right.
And so
Nice.
him and others are the ones who kind of counseled me on working on your credit and how you do that. And so having friends who really cared about me were able to counsel me on what to do and said, it's not impossible to have your own home.
Right.
People are just not taught this.
Right.
So a really close friend said, "Okay, let's start working on your credit. What do you owe?" And it took me like 2 years, but I started paying off debt that I owed, hospital bills, or like the Dish Network. When you're young and dumb, you kind of
Right.
just
You
go
gotta
ahead
have
and
it.
start putting everything in your name. And I just started working on that, my husband and I together, and we just went full throttle from there. And I just can say it just all started to fall into place. That, and like I said, well, now I own my home, and now I'm able to share those experiences with other family members that I have, because I have family members also who are in prison or have gotten released from prison and they've struggled, right? But I'm that ray of hope that,
Yeah.
we can change and we can own our home. You know, I believe I'm probably maybe one of the first in my family that actually has, you know,
Own a home.
yeah, own a home.
I think it's interesting you point out the fact that you own a home, but it was your desperation that drove you to it.
Yes.
I think that's actually pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a somewhat similar story. Well, not with the renting. When I was released from prison, I went to live with my parents.
Okay.
And you know, I before I went to prison, when I was struggling financially, I thought, you know, I wish I'd lived at my parents' long enough, right, to save up money and get a house, but I just didn't want to live with my parents. So I moved
Nobody
out,
does.
and then I was stuck in this situation. So I thought, I'm not making that same mistake again. I'm going to live with them as long as it takes, even if it's painful, right? And it can be hard.
Yeah.
When you're a woman in her 40s, living with your parents like you're a child, you know.
Right.
And they didn't treat me like I was a child, but you never get over that parent-child dynamic. And I did not know what it would be like to try to get an apartment, but I'd heard stories. So I was like, I'm just going to buy a house, you know. And it took 2 years to buy a house, but I had terrible credit before I went to prison. I had foreclosure and an eviction,
Wow.
right? And my credit score was like 400, you know, so just tons of medical debt. But being in prison for as long as I was completely erased all the debt, almost like a bankruptcy would do, but without a bankruptcy. So when I left prison, I had a clean slate. So then my only goal was to obtain a credit score and turn it into a good one. And that's really what took the time, because you have to have a certain amount of employment history and credit history, right? And they like a minimum of 2 years. So as soon as I could then, bought a house. And I bought, I mean, the cheapest house I could find, frankly. Well, I mean, I could have found a cheaper house, but I mean, within reason, right? I was not picky about neighborhood or size or nothing. I just didn't want to have to personally fix it up myself because I'm not a carpenter.
Right.
But other than that, right?
Right.
And so I am still there today. You know, one thing you talked about where you are now, a ray of hope, or even just, you know, encouragement. You're the person in your family who was on the home. Recently, I went to a training in my neighborhood in North Minneapolis for land care. And there was people of all ages there, all different cultures, and a woman came in at the end to teach people about finances, right? The whole point of the training was to better yourself. Land care was part of it, but then she's talking about life insurance and everything. And anyway, she asked the whole class, she's like, who here owns property? I was the only person that raised my hand. And so then I thought, that's amazing. I'm certain that a majority of these people do not have felonies, right? And I'm the only person here with a felony, and I own the house. So that was really encouraging for me. And I wanted to tell all of them, you can all do it. I don't know what you're waiting for, but if it was happened for me, you can. Yeah.
I don't know. For me, it's, well, I mean, obviously, I've only been out for just over 3 months now. So I don't own a place yet, but I'm looking at an apartment so far. I'm in basically a group home situation now. When I first got out, though, I was in a halfway house, or they said it was a halfway house. The thing is I don't know. I gotta try to go into this a little bit. I think they said that they would put me into a halfway house, but when I got there, it was a homeless shelter. Like, it wasn't just people, you know, out of prison, halfway house type situation. It was anybody who needed a place to stay type situation.
Oh. Okay.
And so it's like, and it was pretty, I don't know, it was kind of first off, it was kind of disorienting. And I don't know if you guys remember, because you've been out for a while, but there's the whole prison, back in public society juxtaposition. It's like, it's a culture shock, you know? And then you walk out of a very structured environment into an environment where everything is just like, I mean, completely wild. I mean, almost the worst case scenario wild, you know? And you have to make a decision at that point. You have to decide, okay, well, where am I gonna go from here? Am I gonna do what these people are doing here? or I'm going to stand my ground, and keep moving in this direction like I want to. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, I think I got, at some point, it was like I got lucky. I met a few people. There was one gentleman in particular who kind of helped me find another place. The place where I'm at now, like I said, it's a group home, but it's quiet, it's clean. You know, there's only a few guys there. We all kind of share the same background for however many years they've been there. I personally don't plan on being there for years. I have plans on moving out very soon. However, it's one of those things where, yeah, I too am looking at like purchasing a home. It's one of the first things I want to do. If I can do it before, like before I get into an apartment, that's exactly what I want to do. And I'm willing to do pretty much anything. I'm looking at container homes and building my own container home. Yeah. I'm looking at like the trailer homes or prefab homes or whatever, these small footprint homes. I don't care. But I feel like the best way to do it, me already having a felony on my background and wanting to like get back on my feet and have a life of my own without constantly being judged for my history.
Yes.
The only way to do that is to have my own place. You know, you try to get an apartment, they're gonna run that background check. You know what I mean? You try to rent a house even, they're gonna run that background check. It's like I'm trying to get away from it. So I feel like the only way to do that and really be able to stand on my own 2 feet is to have my own place. And like I said, I don't care what it looks like. I gotta have my own space.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
What about you, Marshawn?
Yeah, so I was released to a halfway house. Not an ideal situation because you got halfway houses that are supposed to be a transition back into society for people who are incarcerated, but that's not what it is. Like, there's no space for you to be allowed to transition. It's like you're stuck inside a house, and yeah, you can leave to go do certain things, but like with the way you're monitored and everything with their rules, and I understand it's part of the structure of supervision, but when it becomes overbearing and overwhelming and it starts to affect people's mental health, then it's not a proper transition that someone is receiving that needs to be rehabilitated into society. As far as I've been away for so long and I need to learn how to live back in society. That's not what a halfway house is doing. A halfway house is basically keeping you locked in there, getting their funding, and still just treating you like you're incarcerated, you know? So it's like dealing with that and navigating that on my end is like, it's been just draining of my energy, you know, like being in a halfway house and having to have a roommate. I haven't had a roommate in over 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Like, I had a single cell to myself for over 6 years. So, like, to get out and have to have a roommate and have to have someone live with you after not having no one sleeping in a room with you at night when you're locked in, it's hard to adjust to, you know, like, I don't know this person, I don't know this person. Why do I have to sleep with these people, like, at night? I can't even lock my own door. So how is it that I feel secure? At least in prison, my door is locked at night. In this halfway house, this door is open 24/7. Anybody can just come in here, you know, and it's like, it's not ideal, and it's like, those are the hard things to deal with. So like, my first day out of prison, didn't sleep at all. Second day out of prison, slept 2 hours. Third day out of prison, slept 3 hours. And I was just stuck at that 3 hour mark. Like, I could never get more than 3 hours of sleep until I found a job 2 weeks after being out. So for the first 2 weeks, I was just getting those 3 hours of sleep because I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel like I had real housing. I'm in a halfway house and it's being ran like a prison, and it was just like not ideal. So like, when I got my job, I really like focused on, okay, now I have a job. Let me try and, you know, find somewhere I can get in an apartment at, you know, like I go through the process of finding all these different places that say they're felon friendly, you know, but when you're just as impacted, you know that a lot of these places that say they're felon friendly, they're really not. Like,
Right.
they'll have their requirements, fill it out. Okay, yeah, we're felon friendly, but as soon as they run that background check on you, yeah, your type of felony, we can't work with you. Oh, but you're felon friendly. So it's like, it's just navigating that is really hard and dealing with that. And nowadays, application fees are $50.
Yep.
So not 25 anymore.
Yeah, not 25 anymore. They're $50. So
Right.
you're filling out application and paying the application fee $50 every time. It starts to add up. So like, I can look at so many places in a month, and I done paid all these application fees. Well, I just paid a whole month's of rent right there already by just trying
And
to find
didn't
a
get
place
accepted.
and didn't
Right.
get accepted anywhere. So it was like, that was definitely hard to go through. So it was like, I had to rely on a family friend, you know, to really like help me out, and as far as like go through her resources and her contacts. And there was a guy who she knows, who she works with, and he rents the felons, and like, he used to be a correctional officer, and the simple fact that this guy takes chances on felons, he's someone I obviously want to work with, someone I want to meet. So, you know, took some time, you know, finally met him a couple weeks ago. 2 weeks ago I met him. You know, he said he also wanted to meet me because he wanted to know who I was, that was trying to steady keep reaching out to him to rent one of his apartments. So it was like, when we met and I seen how genuine he was, and he seen that, you know, I was someone who was intelligent, clean, and just really had stuff going for themselves, he like, he saw in me that, you know, there was something there, and he took the chance on me, and now he's gonna be renting to me. So it's like,
So you got that apartment then with that guy?
yeah, so I got the apartment. I'm just waiting on the transfer of my parole to get an agent that can approve that address, you know, because
That's
they've
excellent.
got so
That's
many
great.
technicalities with this parole stuff that it's just ridiculous. Like, and that's another challenge, you know, having to deal with. I'm in one county, can't find any properties that'll rent to me in that county. So
Right.
let me look outside the county. Now that I found someone outside the county to rent to me, oh, well, we can't approve that because it's outside the county. We got to transfer you over here, and it could take up to 45 days. So in the meantime, got to pay $850 just to rent a room somewhere and have roommates. But, you know, that's still better peace of mind instead of being in a halfway house.
I had a similar issue when I was going to buy a house, right? And I'm looking anywhere that's in my price range. And so some of those properties were right on the other side of the border of Wisconsin, right? Like little rural towns in
Right.
Wisconsin. And my supervising agent said, well, you can buy one of those houses, but there's no guarantee you'll be able to move in because you would have to transfer
Right. to
your
Wisconsin.
supervision to Wisconsin would have to accept you.
Right.
And so, but there was no way for me to find out without buying a house first.
Oh my goodness.
Because once you have property there, then you can ask to live there,
Yeah.
right? But I couldn't just test the waters,
But
right?
that's wild. That's crazy because it's like, how do you buy? Okay, I can buy this property,
Right, and then
but you're
without
not.
even
You might not
knowing.
let me live there.
Right?
That's nuts. I
Yeah.
can't- that's
Yeah.
nuts.
So that was a struggle, and it was really frustrating because the houses over there were nicer and cheaper, and you could commute into the cities just from like 15, 20 minutes across the border, right?
I got a question for you too, though. Right. So I'm not gonna. We won't say how long you've been out, but you've been out for a while. Are you still like being homeowners and being established and being stable and everything? You still running into that? You know, you got that felony mark on your record type thing. Is that still a problem for you from time to time?
As far as housing, or
As far as anything.
you know, not as far as housing because it's
Well, you've already got your place.
yeah, because I've already got my place. You know, I don't know for sure all the times that I might have been discriminated against because people will make up a reason.
Right.
They won't tell you, you know, I don't want someone with a felony here. Instead, they'll just say, we're not hiring or we chose somebody else.
Right.
And so I guess I couldn't say for sure. probably am blocking out any negative experiences that I had and focusing
Right.
on the positive.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, for myself, I'm going to say no. Actually, I don't know if it's, well, I do know it's the glory of God, I'm going to say. But I will tell you that living in a small town, like I said, I live in a small town of 7,000 people, so it's Crookston.
Right.
So people, I'm very well known in the community there now because I'm very involved.
Okay.
So working at a company that I worked there since August of 2011, just months after after my release,
yeah.
and I've been there since. And I've gained a good relationship with management. I am also involved in the mental health center that's there that also deals with addicts. I'm part of the board. It's called Aluma. I'm part of that board.
Right.
I'm very involved in my church. So when we are out there, like we're going to have a picnic on Sunday, so I serve, I help. So I know people and people know me because I tend to, I love people, and that's what my passion is to help. Right. So, funny story, my daughter came home from school one day, and this was, I can't even remember how many years ago, and she says, "Mom, I looked up your name on Google." And I'm like, "Oh no."
Uh-oh.
And she's like, "This is what comes up." And it's my release picture from boot camp. And I'm like, "Oh no." It's my little girl, and I'm like, yep, well, of course, Mom made some mistakes, and that's probably, And I've had opportunities. I have been before the Senate in Washington, D.C. I've spoke about union jobs.
Right.
I met Kamala Harris in St. Cloud, Minnesota. By being a steward and being part of my union and just being involved, right? Wanting to make a change.
Right.
So I think that's really, in my smaller community and knowing people is what's really helped me blossom into not having that that's who I'm known by.
Right.
I'm not my mistake. I'm not known as that Veronica Infante who went to prison on third controlled substance anymore.
Right.
Or who was that, that drug dealer or that thug, or like, oh, she was just, oh, you can't trust her. She's just going to abandon her kids. So let's see how long this lasts. It's just, I was able to turn over a whole new leaf,
Right.
and some people who do or who have met me are, what, you were in prison? Okay, because my husband is full of tattoos, full of tattoos. And here they think, my husband went and did 10 years to find out you're the one who went to prison? Why? I couldn't even see you going to prison.
Right.
Well, I wasn't always this person. Okay,
Right.
This is not who I always
Right.
was. I have a past, and I was a hurt child, and I hurt people because I was hurt. And so that's how I lived my life, because I had that mentality, So that's what I lived by, because I was so angry and I was so hurt. And so I hurt people.
Right.
Yeah.
But now coming out with a different mentality about, like God showing me, forgiving me, and showing me favor and love and the kindness, and like, if I can, all I have to do is share this, by God, like, that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So slowly but surely, like, I've met people that have been part of something, or I've heard my story, and then that's just how it goes. It's like a domino effect. It kind of just so it's.
One more quick question though. How much of that, and again, both of you, how much of that do you attribute to the fact that you were actually able to get out, get your own home, and get established in a comfortable space for yourselves? How much of your success now do you attribute to actually having your own space?
For me, I know that it's nicer living in my own house than it was. I mean, I loved living with my parents, and they are wonderful people. But again, it's not independence,
Right.
right? And it's not your place that you're cleaning and helping out with. And there is a certain amount there's an internal shift, right? When you are in a leadership position of your own life.
Yeah.
Right? And you can make decisions however is best for you without thinking about your roommates or all those kinds of things. And so that certainly, that feeling of empowerment is very helpful. For me, I have a similar, I hate to say, and I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's, but I could be wrong, and we'll find out when my husband's released from prison, right? Because he's a man. But I don't think it's just because I'm female that I have had good success. Like you, I attribute it to God. And I also have very supportive friends.
Right.
So my first job I got out, I just did something simple. I'm going to iron shirts at a dry cleaner. I'm just going to do whatever, right?
Right.
They were very nice, but after too long, a friend of mine from high school who has a bigger size company hired me because he just knows me and respects me. Right. And he put me in I ran his company. And everybody there knew about my crime, and I instituted a policy of hiring exclusively felons if I could, because that's what I wanted, right? And he fully supported that. And he was, I don't think I'll ever fully know all the ways that he supported me when I wasn't around. He certainly, the owner of that company and my friend, received serious flack for hiring me from his family, friends, from the community, and even from other employees. And he was constantly defending me behind my back and reinforcing my authority. Well, you're going to listen to her, you don't work here. And I just can't even tell you how supportive that was, to have someone be like, she is my voice. And if you don't like it, you're the problem. But this is my place and she runs it. I felt really good as a person after so long being dehumanized. And then to not only have a job, but have someone who supports me in that job. And it's a good job you'd want to have, a good learning experience, right? I left that company last year and didn't know what I was going to do. And so then I thought, is this the first time I'm real? Because I mean, I could go iron shirts again, but I need to pay my bills now. My house costs more than that, right? I'm not free at my parents'. So I thought, I wonder what it will be like to try to get a job at the same level.
Right.
And I applied at a bunch of jobs, and I never had anybody tell me they weren't hiring me because of my background. Just, and to be honest, a lot of them I didn't want to work, so I didn't follow up. Like, if they follow up with me, I'll take it, but I'm talking about like weeding gardens or waving a flag at a traffic construction or any kind of thing, I'll do it.
Right.
But I applied as an executive director of a nonprofit, a national nonprofit. I'm just applying everywhere, right? Every kind of thing. Yeah. And they hired me as an executive director of this nonprofit. And it's a public facing, so that's, I was really surprised by that, and they're sending me to Washington, D.C. next week for training and stuff. And so, again, I think I'm going to attribute that to, that's what God wanted me doing. He had me working for my friend's company so I could learn certain skills for the next step. And then he just fulfilled the next step. Yes. And our next subject's going to be money. But along those same lines, it's important to be really careful of how you think of money. If you think of it other than a tool. Right? So when I was at that job where I ran the company, I made good money, more money than I ever made in my life. And I socked it away in retirement funds and stocks and savings. And then when I left that job, that's all that I had. Right. And I literally spent every cent. I cashed out my retirement. I cashed out all my stocks. And in July, this summer, I'd been gone from my job for almost a year, I had $200 left in my account, left to my name. But at this point, I had no debt still. Right. And none of my bills had ever been late. But I had $200 left and no natural prospects, right? And it was at that moment that the executive director position landed in my lap, right when I needed it. God literally kept paying the bills. And I had forgotten I'd applied to that job. You know what I mean? It had been so long ago. So,
when we trust, he says, not even the birds worry about how they're going to eat, right? So why should we?
What about yourself?
For me, like I said, it's like right now I got fingers in everything. I'm working with one nonprofit as a writer, moderator, and I guess grant researcher now. I'm actually trying to start my own nonprofit because this re-entry program for me is significant. It's important. Yes. For people who are just getting out, to try to help them to establish themselves and get their feet under them so they can find some foundation and they have some direction. Because I had some help, But it was like, I think those first 3 weeks for me were like the hardest because I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where I was going to go. There were people who were like, you know, you can go here, you can go there, you can go here, but just coming out of prison, I didn't trust that. I didn't believe it. You know, it's like, yeah, we're going to help you. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So so for me, it was like, it was one of those things where, I don't know, I think when you just step out, it's more like, it's a show and prove kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like, you say you want to help me. All right, well, let's see what you do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I sat back and I waited, but they came through, like everybody, one at a time, like really came through. You know what I mean? Alhamdulillah, it's like, I feel like, yeah, I mean, it is what he wants it to be.
It increases your confidence and reassurance and all
Right.
those things.
Right.
Does that give you more peace, just a settled,
It's-
lived experience of?
What happens is this, is you go through first, like I said, it's like, for me, it was the emotional trauma of even being out.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what do you do next? What do you do first, or what do you do next?
Because this is the real world, right? I
Right,
mean, when we're in
right.
there, we're getting fed. There's like a routine. We got
I
everything
was-
down. Then we come out here, and it's like, hope y'all figure it out.
I was just
Here
gonna
you
say
go.
that. I swear,
Right?
for the first week I was out, I was forgetting to eat because there's no bell to tell me to eat. You know what I mean? I would sit because I didn't know where to go, so I just sit in that room because I didn't know where to go or what to do. So I just sit there, you know. But it was like, I think like after the first couple of days, I was like, I gotta get out and go do something. I gotta make this happen. This is not on them anymore. It's on me now. And what I find funny about that, what I find really hilarious about that is, like, we get out and they say, okay, well, you're a ward of the state because you're still on parole, right? But as a ward, you're supposed to be their responsibility, and they're supposed to take care of you as a ward, right? They look at you and they say things like, okay, well, we don't have to give you due process to throw you back in prison. We can just pick you up off the street and throw you back in for whatever reason we want to. This is what your parole officer, this is what my parole officer said. You know what I mean? But the thing is like, they don't provide housing. They don't provide food. They don't provide finance. They don't provide clothing. They don't provide transportation. They don't give you anything. But you're a ward of the state. They call you a ward.
They'll put you back in prison if you don't get it for yourself.
Right. If you don't get it for yourself, they'll lock you up. That's the thing, though. But again, but again, though, it's like, I'm looking forward to the future, and so listening to you two speak,
It's
right?
definitely harder to do when you're justice impacted.
Right. Right. And
I know
so-
you definitely have to be hungry for change, regardless. Like, that was my mentality when I got out, because I knew I was going to have family members and friends still doing the same thing with not much change. And like I cried a lot because I remember feeling lonely. I remember
Right.
feeling like I was alone. I didn't have people who wanted to go with me to church. I didn't have people who wanted to go with me to the classes. I didn't have people I had my sisters and who would talk to me, but I was on a different level spiritually with where I was going and what I wanted to do, to where everybody was still doing the same thing they were doing 2 years ago. You know, there's nothing's really changed. And I've learned that through the CIP program, especially like that program. Boot camp was an amazing 6-month program for me. Being in Togo, Minnesota, and being out there in the boondocks, in the woods back there, and really learning that structure and that discipline, it's helped me even to this day
Right.
to be that structured and to stand up straight, sit down, be presentable.
Right.
Just all these things, like, I took with me because I was hungry for change. So like, and I use, like, it's like they give you the tool, the bag of tools, and it's up to you from here on out to use them, you know. But at the same time, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is a new blueprint. Like, how do I read this? How do I do this? And even through the tears and the struggles, I just kept showing up. I didn't give up. Just keep going, because God says He doesn't say you're not going to go through things. He says, I will walk you. I will walk with you through them. Right. So those things are what I'll be still and know that I am God. That's right. Like, just hearing those things over and reminding myself who I am now and who I no longer am and what I will do. Like, nope, I will be better. I will do something. I'm not my mistake. I will achieve my goals. I will. And even if I'm crying in the shower, I'm going to do this today because that's what God said, and I'm going to do it because that's just what's installed in me now. And it's really taking me above and beyond. I can only give glory to God for that. But we are not our mistakes. And y'all will, I guarantee, as long as you stick to the mindset that you have, you want to do better, you want to get a place, you're going to have those struggles.
Right.
But as long as you don't give up, you'll get there.
That's what's up.
And I've talked about employment, and you have, you said you had gotten a job. Did you have any struggles finding that job, or was it the job you wanted? What'd that look like?
Pretty much, I did a little bit of job searching, within those first 2 weeks, but I kind of was sold this dream that there was these places and these programs and these people would help you get jobs. Just work with them, they're gonna help you get jobs. Well, you're getting funding for me working with you, and you're not getting me a job, none whatsoever. So obviously there's a disconnect somewhere, or it's intentional. So I stopped really the last 4 or 5 days. I stopped applying for jobs and just really started networking. And I'm a firm believer of it's not what you know, it's who you know. So knowing the right people, and me having a background and being justice impacted, it was real big to me to just reach out and see who I can lean on and who can be that contact for me to help me get a job.
Right.
So my biggest ally in my corner is the TREC program, the transformation, reentry, and education community. So just being part of TREC, they have a lot of people working with them. And there was this one lady in particular, Sabine. She helped me reach out to someone that she knows who's a regional manager. Got me hired at the job just like that. I filled out the application with her. Their manager at that location was calling me an hour later. Set up an interview next day. Next day I go. They loved me so much that they wanted to hire me because of how I carry myself and how I present myself and how I'm genuinely wanting to do the work and be of service and just do good. And when you really want to do that, people can see it and they can tell. So they saw that and they wanted that, and that's what I've been doing now, So working a job, making good money, it's it would have never happened if I would have just kept applying for this and applying for that and going to these interviews for no odd reason, So it was just having the right people in your corner is a big help, and it's something that I definitely want to do in the future as well, is working with nonprofits and just really being that person for people getting out of prison, for reentry, just really helping them actually, hey, I know this person who's going to rent to you, man. You got some income? Okay, nope. Well, I got this person who can get you a job working with them next week. So, just actually being that person that they can say that they know that got them a job right away or got them housing somewhere right away is big, and it's really needed because I was gone for a while in prison, so getting out and seeing this whole new world, it's completely different to me, a lot of things weren't here before I got out, and a lot of places that were there aren't really here anymore. And it's there's a lot more people out here in the world, and they're just not doing good. So it's seeing all these people around here in this community not doing good, and knowing that, you kind of contributed to that. It's now I feel a sense of duty to help try and mend that wrong and right that wrong. So it's definitely want to help people who are in the community and returning to the community.
I experienced something similar. You both mentioned showing up made a difference. And you don't just mean arriving on time. You meant showing up,
Exactly.
right? Being respectful, right? And communicating that well. And I think another thing that goes with it is a willingness to start over or try anything. Before I went to prison, I had a good job and I made good money. And when I got out, I was I am willing to recognize that I'm a person coming out of prison, and it might take some time to make it back up to that.
Right.
And so, like I said, I just ironed shirts. But since I showed up, like you said, I was promoted after not too long a time to general manager of a couple locations. So it's important to recognize upon re-entry, the job you're being offered doesn't mean that's the job you'll end up with.
Yes.
Right.
Right? If you have the commitments that you've mentioned, they will see that and they'll put you where you really
Where you should
belong.
be.
But you have to have that foot in the door. And you know, that dry cleaner that I worked at wasn't far from Shakopee prison because I got out and didn't live far from the prison.
Right.
And so women getting out came there to apply. And since I had given the owners, the first felon they'd ever hired, such a good impression, they
Right.
intentionally started hiring women from Shakopee
Awesome.
because
That's
of
awesome.
that. So like you said, then when you show up, you make that network more valuable and more alive, right? And more useful to others.
Yeah. We're able to be a voice.
Yes.
A voice for others that, you know, when given the opportunity, especially after, you know, because some people aren't that mentally strong, especially
Right.
when they get out. If they don't have a good support system or they don't have, like, I had a relationship with Christ, so I was already building that, and I was getting strong in my faith. Where others, if they didn't, I could see that rejection after reject after rejection after rejection. It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts, and then you think, what do I do then? I don't have nobody here to help me. How do I do this? So you just feel like a failure, and you feel like you failed. And then if you did make a mistake, you know, some have stayed on their mistake, and then they just end up going back. Where that's why I've felt so passionate too. Like I even do jail ministry now at our local jail. And I've been able to make it there 3 times because my Thursdays can be really busy, but it's just besides the point. This last time that I went there, I got to talk with 8 women. And I got to share with them, like, hey, I was in this county 2 times, 2005 and 2009. But this is 2024, and this is who I am.
Right.
I'm no longer this person that they had behind these bars. You know, I was able to change my life, and so can you, you know? And the tears and the emotional, like, engagement that we shared was so impactful and so powerful that even the first time I went in, one of the gals actually reached out to one of my sisters saying, like, I met your sister. Like, I didn't know that was your sister. Like, wow. And it gave, like, her hearing my story and how my struggles were able to get me where I am, it gave her hope. So, like, that's what I mean. That's all it takes is, right? It's just sharing a little, helping a little. Maybe you're not helping everybody in the room, but those 1 or 2 will still go and help another 1 or 2, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah. So next subject on the topic of necessities then would be medical care. And so coming out of prison, did you have health insurance? Did the DOC help you with that? Or and did you have any needs that needed addressing?
No, actually, thank God that I've been pretty healthy. But with MA, though, they did get me set up with all that. Before I was released, I had medical assistance. I know they said if I was going to need anything further, like food stamps and whatnot, you know, I could ask for that, food assistance. But after getting released, I think it was 2 weeks, I was like in the phone book, like looking up like housekeeping jobs or, you know, where I could get hired. And then I actually asked my sister, like, well, where are you working at? And I don't remember them offering me any kind of medical assistance there. And I started there 2 weeks after my release. So then from March to August, I was just on MA. And then once getting hired at New Flyer, after I started making, you know, good enough money, then I had insurance through my job, which was actually, it's pretty good, you know, Blue Cross Blue Shield, pretty good insurance. So I've been with them since. Yeah.
For me, same with her, that the prison helped me set up medical assistance, just like the paper application and turn that in and everything. And I didn't have any medical needs, but because of my probation, I was required to do therapy and stuff. And they accepted the medical assistance from the state, but then when I got a job, and I was like going to do the grown-up thing and get health insurance through my job, they didn't accept that health insurance. And so I had to pay out of pocket. And fortunately, they did some reduced rates because it's state mandated, right? But I was kind of surprised and didn't expect any of that, right? I thought I was doing the grown-up thing and being smart with myself and what have you with signing on to, I could have chosen not to take the employee insurance.
Right.
And then I would have had to pay nothing for my mental health.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
that's a warning for someone, I suppose.
Yeah. A heads up.
Yeah.
Real quick. No, for me, I'm still in MA, unfortunately. But again, I've only been out for 3 months, but I do plan on doing something about that soon. Right now, my means of finance is very limited. You know, I mean, I'm going to school full time.
Oh.
I'm working as a student worker. And so it's like, and aside from my own personal projects and, you know, and then, like I said, trying to launch a nonprofit, I don't have the money for medical insurance. You know what I mean? I don't have the money to pay for it. But it's definitely on the agenda. It's one of those things that I'm looking at, and it's definitely one of those things I think about. Fortunately, though, and I don't know how fortunate it is because of the cause of that situation, but I kind of struggle with depression and anxiety,
Okay.
and so because of that, I was asked before I got out, 6 months before I got out, okay, well, you want to fill out this application for MA, for public assistance, and so I was able to fill that out, and so when I got out, I was already on public assistance. I already had medical assistance, and so I don't have any health conditions, not really. But I was
Mental
able
health
to,
can
Very
take
good.
a long
Yeah.
time to get an appointment, though.
right, and that's just the thing though, because I've been out now for 3 months, and I still don't have an appointment to see a counselor until
my.
November.
Yeah.
Until November. So it's so I don't even get to see them until November. However, what I could do though is I got everything else checked, because if you know anything about Stillwater, you know what I mean? That facility, the water is terrible, the food is terrible, the air conditions are terrible. The paint, it's I mean, it's just an unhealthy environment all the way around. There's nothing healthy about it. Fortunately, I came to it unscathed. So, you know, a lot of people don't. Some people go in there and they're perfectly healthy, and then, like, I think they said something like almost 60% of the people that go into prison come out with diabetes. You know what I mean? Because it's just the food that you're forced to eat.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
They serve us food that says not for human consumption on the boxes. I worked in the kitchen in there and seen it myself, so it's bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. I mean, especially you're working in the kitchen and you look on the box and it said, this is not for human consumption, but they're feeding it to people. You know what I'm saying?
I'm curious about what you said then. You had Stillwater check out your health? Did you trust that?
I didn't have Stillwater check out I checked out my health after I got
Okay,
out.
I was
So
like,
I just finished the
Stillwater
whole.
said I was fine.
No,
so.
I just went through a whole list of, like, you know, like, I need appointments for this and this and this. I want to get this checked out and this and this. I went through the whole deal. Like everything from my eyes to my kidneys. I had everything checked.
Well, actually, Minnesota should be really good health care. I know that, you know, when I needed their services, even before my incarceration, it's what I always had, and I don't ever remember owing anything. I mean, they paid for my children to be born. You know, I didn't.
Yeah.
It's just, I remember it being, and knowing that Minnesota is a pretty helpful state.
Right.
So actually, it's not bad
not
that you
bad.
need it. When you need it, you need it.
It's just
And
not
that's
the
just-
prisons. They're not that helpful, because that same paper application, I filled out 4 of them, and they never turned in any of them.
Oh,
4
no,
different
see.
times.
Did that happen to you as well?
I filled them
Well-
out 4 different times, and because they kept switching case managers, because the case managers went to go work in other roles throughout the prison at the time. 4 different paper applications I filled out for the medical insurance in Minnesota.
I'll do it.
Never got any of them turned in.
What's
Oh.
funny
Never
is,
got the food stamp thing turned in, even though I was going to a halfway house. Never got that turned in. Only thing they did turn in was my ID application, and they got me down there for ID picture. But that's because the lady that's in charge of that, when they turn them into her, she actually does her job. But it's all about our case managers getting this turned in to these persons.
Right.
And some do, some don't. So it's like,
Did you
I
do it
got
on your
out.
own then when you got out?
I had to. I had to go to North Point and have them help me fill out the application and everything. They did it for me. They answered a couple questions wrong, but then fixed it. And it took a few weeks to get it, and now I finally have it. But
Yeah.
no, like, the DOC should have had that done. gave you 4 different paper applications. Should have got it done, because they kept sending me these packets for these benefits and the health insurance. They kept sending them to us. Me and my neighbor, my neighbor, he got out the same day of prison as me too, and we got the same agent, took the same car ride and everything. So like, he asked me like, you get that packet again? I'm like, yeah, I got it. Well, like, what is this for? I got 4 different times, filled them all out and turned them in, and he never turned it on for me or anything. So it's like,
Wow.
getting out and not being able to do that. I just just on Friday, they just finally told me like, yeah, so we got everything squared away with your medical, and they backtracked it to where that first day of the month, and now it's active for you. So like, now I can finally go to the hospital or a doctor for anything that I need.
That's pretty serious, because if you had some health issues that need to be checked sooner than 60 days after you're out of prison.
Yeah,
It's bad. I didn't go through that with the public assistance thing, but definitely with my ID, my birth certificate, my social security card.
Oh, wow.
I went through the same thing, and it was my case manager every time. He'd be like, "Well, you got to fill this out and send it in." And I was trying to make sure I had this done for a year before I got out, and he kept reassuring me, "No, we have this in your base file. We have this in your base file." I got out and I had nothing. I had nothing. After
You know,
a
in
year.
those positions, people have to really care about what they're doing. And I think that because there's so many people that are incarcerated, or there's so many people that they may be dealing with, it's like they lose the sense of care, and it now just becomes paperwork or whatever it may be. And that's sad, because not only is it happening like in prisons, but it's happening even outside, whether it's at your job. You have people who are in certain positions in human resources or whatever, because they care, because they want to make a difference, to where it's just too much to deal with now. Like, I don't have time to care. I have to turn this paperwork, or I have to, and that's where we're losing focus. Like iron sharpens iron. Like, it's important for us to help one another, whether you're up here or down here. What are your needs? Because that's what a case manager does. It's what a probation officer does. But I've noticed so much when I hear different stories is, why do I even have a probation officer if they don't help me? What's the plan? Like, sitting down writing goals, like, how are things? Like, actually conversating with me instead of, okay, yep, just sign this paper and out the door. Like this is what you are. I mean, people need that. We need this interaction. We need to know, we need to feel cared and valued for, some kind of importance, because if we feel there's no purpose, then we fall for nothing.
Right. The whole thing is, though, I mean, it's like the whole purpose of this program, what we're doing here right now, is just what you said, right? Iron sharpens iron, right? It's, we sit here and we discuss what we've been through, what we're doing. We're not discussing it for our own personal gain.
Right.
We're discussing it for the people who are going to be getting out soon, or dealing with what we've already dealt with, so that they know now, okay, well, I'm not the only one going through this, and this is how you deal with it.